In this Calcutta slum, the main business is death. Here the bodies of India's great and good, its rich and its poor, from the lowest caste to the highest priest, are laid to rest. Nimtala Crematorium, by the banks of the sacred river Ganges, supports a varied community, coat breakers, woodcutters and stall owners, selling anything from garlands of flowers to holy water. They all put a price on the river's salvation. On the 7th of August 1941, the body of a poet was carried here. Rabindranath Tagore, the writer, teacher, playwright and poet, the Indian nationalist, environmentalist and rural reformer, contemporary of Gandhi, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, the world traveller and the global sensation, was dead. But what of his legacy is left? There is a flame that burns bright in India, in Bengal, but now only flickers in the west. Just like his memorial here in Calcutta, Rabindranath Tagore's Western legacy is in need of repair. The flow of rivers, of the Ganges, inspired much of Tagore's work. Even under the haze of the Indian summer, with the river so polluted, so defiled, it still holds a playful charm. In 1912 it was Gitanjali, Tagore's Nobel Prize-winning collection of poems, that propelled him away from Bengal and the Ganges and thrust him towards the west.
Gitanjali's impact was amazing. I think this is before the build-up to World War I. People were really worried about what was happening, and the spirituality of Gitanjali took the world by storm, as it were. It was what it had been waiting for, and they immediately interpreted Tagore as the mystic Eastern sage, the seer, the prophet, something that he was very uncomfortable with. But what is amazing about Gitanjali is it was translated into every conceivable language right across the world, and like the Bible, it has never gone out of print.
People in the West were taken in by his appearance. Was he simply a mystic, colonial poet? Or was he a saviour, a second coming?
Tagore was largely seen as somebody who was closely aligned with Christ. In fact, in England, when Tagore walked in 1912 in the countryside, there was a young girl who told her dad, "Look, there's Jesus."
Tagore wrote both the Indian and Bangladeshi national anthems. He believed in an independent India. He never lived to see India free. In the Western mind, his career was bookended by the world wars. As a universalist, someone who believed in one world, one people, Tagore was appalled by what he saw. He travelled the continent, lecturing against nationalism and promoting East-West unity.
Major political leaders and figures queued up to meet him. We can talk about Mussolini inviting him to the Colosseum and giving him a kind of an ovation. We have Tagore being invited to Germany, where women literally fawned over him, fainted in his presence. He went to tremendous crowds in Soviet Russia, which was unthinkable at that point of time. He was mobbed in Persia, and everywhere that he went, people literally paid to attend his lectures. This was one side where the common people came to see Tagore. The other aspect was that people who were intellectuals like Freud, for example, Einstein, for example, Helen Keller, George Bernard Shaw, all the major intelligentsia of the period wanted to meet Tagore, and he made it a point, wherever he went, to meet them. So yes, Tagore's visibility was extremely high in the West.
Bolpur station sits on the outskirts of the Indian village of Shantiniketan. It's in Shantiniketan that Tagore's legacy is real, more solid than his philosophy, art or literature. The name Shantiniketan means abode of peace. Situated 100 miles north of Calcutta, in rural West Bengal, this just about still applies. It's here, in this village, that Tagore built, using some of the funds raised by his travels, a place to put his ideas into practice. The village has become something of a tourist mecca over the years. Such is the pull of Tagore's memory and his historical significance in India. Just off this busy main road is the oasis of Patabhavina, the school set up by Tagore in 1901. To this day, it, and the schools in the area, have fought against the rote learning and the constant testing so prevalent in Tagore's own education and in that of modern India. The school day begins with a spiritual but secular prayer at dawn.
We think it's our responsibility to carry on the philosophy, to hold up the vision that Tagore had. In our curriculum, we have music, dance, handicrafts, painting, clay modeling as compulsory part of our curriculum, and we will give equal importance to these subjects which were in the vision of the founder.
Shantiniketan is also home to Visva-Bharati University. Founded by Tagore in 1921, its motto is, "Where the world meets in one nest." At the heart of Shantiniketan, it represents the most visible part of Tagore's legacy.
OBC category candidates history: Shaurima Das, Moumita Pal, Shukonna Parveen, Rupsha Gorai.
With a considerable foreign population, it forms the heart of Shantiniketan, now a true university town. Just past the university, on a country road, lies Tagore's other great project, the culmination of his ideas on nature and Indian village life, the Rural Reconstruction Institute at Sriniketan.
Tagore was a great lover of nature. He saw everything in nature as sacred, as full of divinity, as the manifestation of a mysterious, loving cosmic energy. So for him, every leaf, every twig, every tree, every person, every bird was this great divinity speaking through the eyes of that being. And he was connected with that sensibility constantly. He lived it, day by day, moment by moment, second by second.
Sriniketan project was meant to reconstitute and reinvigorate the rural society through endogenous process, and to make the society self-reliant and have a collective and just humanitarian community life.
Tagore shared much with his great contemporary Mahatma Gandhi. Both believed in the great need to rejuvenate India's neglected villages. Villages that were becoming culturally and spiritually empty. Villages that had fallen into a malaise of disease and poverty and been kept infantile by unproductive farming methods.
India was a British colony, and so the villages were steeped in poverty and ignorance. Both Gandhiji and Rabindranath wanted to make them self-reliant. Their approach is different. Different in the sense, while Rabindranath was absolutely in favor of introducing modern devices in rural reconstruction, in agriculture, like he used tractors at that point of time, which is simply unheard of. He was in favor of using good fertilizers brought from Europe. Rabindranath was in favor of introducing modern European techniques in agriculture, in homemade industry, just to elevate the standard of the rural people.
Tagore's new project, Sriniketan, was ambitious. The shared use of this mechanised plough in a local rice paddy is a continuation of Tagore's collective, cooperative vision for agriculture and his vision for the local people. Sriniketan was founded around 1923. Based a few kilometres outside Shantiniketan, Sriniketan aims to bring completeness of life back to the local villages by showing people how to solve their own problems without the need for outside help. Although it's almost 100 years since the start of Tagore's cooperative rural reconstruction project, some tried and tested farming techniques have refused to change. Aside from struggles with modernity, Tagore also faced another problem when he tried to reinvigorate village life, that of culture.
The villages around here are mostly multi-ethnic, multi-religious kind of villages. But there are also uni-ethnic kind of villages like the Santal villages. Although they are part of what is called a broader kind of a village society, in terms they are called as an hamlet, not independent, but there are also independent Santal villages. So culturally, I think the focus of Sriniketan was every community living around here. The Muslims, the Hindu, various castes, lower caste, the middle caste, the upper caste, and also the tribal people living here.
With a population of over 6 million, the Santals are the largest indigenous tribe in India. Tagore promoted their culture as one of purity in the face of oppression. Their religion now, part tribal, part Buddhist, part Hindu and part Christian, is a reminder of how their culture is under threat from outside forces. Some of their villages, such as this one near Shantiniketan, fell under the benevolent influence of Tagore. Tagore organised the digging of hygienic tube wells, cleared the village of malaria and founded schools that taught in the Santali language. He promoted their cultural dance and craft work, but resisted any commercialisation of it. Santal history had been bleak. By the 19th century, they had been reduced to virtual slaves for local landlords through corrupt money-lending practices. In 1855, they rebelled against their oppressors, who were backed by the British authorities. The revolt was swiftly crushed. Thousands were dead and many villages destroyed. The battle was David versus Goliath, handmade weapons against rifles and steel. Major Jervis, a British officer, said of their victory that there was not a sepoy in the war who did not feel ashamed of himself. 70 years later, it took people like Tagore to try and finally repair this damage.
Tagore do have physical legacy in Bengal at least, in the sense that university is there, Tagore Rural Reconstruction Project is still running, but not in the sense, not in the kind of a way that Tagore wanted it to run. But it still have a relationship with Tagore's name. In that sense, Tagore's legacy still lives. But so far as the ideas were concerned, his ideas of cooperative life was concerned, his ideas of community living was concerned, his idea of education and development of the human being, total human being, making the life complete as far as possible is concerned, is no longer there, and that doesn't perhaps bother the people.
Tagore died in 1941, at the height of the London Blitz. Perhaps then, it is no wonder that the legacy of a man who spoke of universalism, of brotherhood and of peace was lost in the chaos. His literature lives on in the West. Often confined more to academia, he's a name on a plaque or a statue in a dusty hall. But in one quiet corner of England, he has a real, physical legacy. On the outskirts of Totnes, Devon, lies Dartington Hall. This is Sriniketan's sister project, its British mirror, with handicrafts, art and agriculture at its heart. The connection between Tagore and Dartington's founders, Leonard and Dorothy Elmhirst, was deep and lasting. Dartington Hall is the most solid part of Tagore's legacy in the United Kingdom.
Tagore had this wonderful idea for this new school for the villages, but he had absolutely no funding. And he had asked Leonard Elmhirst to stop what he was doing, middle of his agricultural economics degree at Cornell, and to go straight to India with him the very next day that he met him in 1921. And luckily, Leonard said, no, I have to finish my degree, so he didn't go. And then it was after, as I say, when Dorothy met him, she was prepared to give financial assistance.
Leonard and Dorothy gave up to 48,000 rupees a year between 1923 and 1947. In today's money, these yearly donations equate to around £180,000 a year, meaning the Elmhirsts donated millions to the Sriniketan project. Nestled in the Dartington estate is Schumacher College, an educational institute that represents Tagore's philosophical legacy.
Schumacher College is an international centre for exploring the reasons why we have an ecological and social crisis on a global level, and also a centre for exploring solutions to that crisis. And it's connected to Tagore because Tagore was the inspiration behind Dartington. So without Tagore we wouldn't have had Dartington, and without Dartington we wouldn't have had Schumacher College, because Dartington established Schumacher College. So in other words, there's a direct link between Tagore and Schumacher College. So we're deeply, deeply grateful to Tagore. Without Tagore, we wouldn't have had Schumacher College. So I feel Tagore's spirit here all the time. I feel he's walking around the buildings. I feel him walking, in the gardens. I read his poetry constantly and read his writing constantly. And I feel he's still the guiding spirit of Schumacher College and also of Dartington. And so I'm deeply grateful to him for giving us that tremendous legacy.
through his poetry, through his songs, through his paintings, through his ideas on education, the environment, and finally he embodies Tagore embodies India's modern consciousness. And while Mahatma Gandhi could be taken as the father of modern independent India, Tagore, with his creative, intellectual pragmatism and activism, actually shows a complete man who embodies India as a modern nation.
Tagore has never been forgotten. Not in the East, where his legacy lives on so clearly in the modern Indian nation, nor in the West, where his philosophy and literature are still studied, visible, yet unfortunately rare. It is in the Western public's consciousness, in the mind of the ordinary person, where his legacy is dimmed to a flicker. With the world facing unprecedented environmental change and a crisis of religion, of culture, at home and abroad, the time for repair, for renewal, for a reconstruction of an Eastern poet's ideas of universal brotherhood could be upon us. It is time for Tagore to have a new legacy in the West.